Okay. So now I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing today. So you should have 4 different black on white sketches. So you're going to look at your sketches and you can talk briefly to Mrs. DeShane or each other about which design you think would be the most dynamic. Think about open versus closed compositions, which one has a lot of variety, which one has clear emphasis, things like that. So when you decide which one, I only have one, so I have to pick that one. You are going to take a piece of tracing paper and place it on top of your work. Okay. Now because we did white on black, it's a little more difficult to see than normal. So if you need to, take your white and make your lines nice and bold, and it'll make it a little easier to see through. Mine right now is just a line drawing. If yours is shaded in, it'll also be easier. Alright, so now I can see my lines really well. And also when you press down, you can see better. I'm just going to trace my image. You're okay, baby. So I have a pelican. And I really like the symbol of the pelican. Was an early Christian symbol. There's a legend that if they ran out of food, that the pelican would actually open its own breast and feed its young of its own blood. So that the early Christians associated with the Christ. Because he also, said that his body was true food and his blood true drink. Okay, so you get the idea. You're going to trace it. Okay. Magic of television. I have another one. Okay. So now that you have your design on tracing paper, you're going to transfer it onto your block. So you will actually flip it over and just trace on the other side. Now, the blocks are pretty soft, so be gentle. Oh, shh. Don't worry about Carmen. She is totally fine. Okay, as you trace over it, the pencil from the other side that you traced with will end up on your block. So let's see if I can line it back up. Okay, so you're going to trace your image onto your block. Tracing paper also rips really easily, so another reason to go gently. And this is how we're going to get our design set onto our block. And reversed so that when it's printed, it will look the way it did in your original design. Let's see, I probably want these a little bit lower here. Okay, so now I have my pelican on my block print. You could also freehand draw if there's something that you didn't particularly like in your original and you want to change it. just don't trace that part, and then you can draw in whatever you would like to change here. So there we go. Okay, now we have lots of different cutting tools, 1 through 6. I have them all very clearly labeled for you all, and each individual one is labeled as well. So at the end of the day, please make sure that you're putting away your correct numbered cutting tool into the correct numbered holder. Okay, so 1, it's a V-shaped shallow cut. So it is pretty tight, small little V. Its companion is number 2, which is a deep V. You can see it's a lot bigger. Number 3, we start to get our U shape. So it's not as pointed in the center. You can see it's more of a U shape. 4 is a square. So if you have a deep channel that you need cut out, or just a large area of white, this would be a great choice. 5 is also a good choice for large areas of white. It is an extra wide U. Focusing really well on it, but you'll see it in class. And then number 6, you'll use the least often. It is just a straight knife. Again, I caution you all to be very careful. General rules are you should always be cutting away from you. You also need to make sure that you're not near your buddies. If anyone is not acting appropriately with the cutting tools, you'll be done with the project immediately. There will be no second chances. I will give you something super boring and awful to do. So, don't do it. Okay. When I say cutting away from you, it means cutting that direction away from you. You always need to have a good tight grip also. Okay. I wanted to show you some of my others here too that we have. So as you're cutting, you can also shade in. So this is one I'm getting ready to do for my own art purposes. And I used a black marker on it so that I could clearly tell what was going to be black and white. So you can also, if you have a Sharpie, do that to help you. This one's been inked a few times, so the ink is starting to get stuck in there. But you can see the cuts are different shapes, but they read the same. Okay. So this is a printed image of the Holy Family. And you can see, Mary's dress is all pretty much white. But when you look here, you can see all my cuts appear in her dress. So as long as all the cuts are below the level of the top part of your block, then it will read as a white. In order to get shading, like how her face here is shaded by her veil, I was using hatching. You can see the straight across lines that are getting farther apart as they go down to get lighter. You can see those cuts there. Okay. Okay, so that's that. Also, you need to be gentle with your block. This was a really beautiful block that I had done. And then my dear little Maxie broken in half. You can carve on the opposite side. So I did end up doing a small monstrance on this side. So if you really mess up, you can flip it over and try again, as long as you're not cutting too deep into your block. Okay, so if you have chosen your design and traced it onto the tracing paper and you have it on your block, then you can begin to carve. So remember that we're doing our Jedi mind tricks and we're doing everything backwards. So what I carve away will be white and what I leave will be black. Okay, so I want my bird to be white. So I need to draw in my feathers here. I want my feathers, because they will be where I'm not carving. If you are drawing directly on to your block, just do it very gently. These are a bit crumbly as well, which you'll probably see as I begin to carve. Okay. So I've selected number 2, which is a deep V shape. I like the V's. It's just a personal preference. I feel like they get a nice clean edge. Okay, and then all these little scrappies, just try to keep it together, and you are in charge of cleaning up your little pieces at the end of the day. Now you can get really bold with your large areas of white, or you can do a lot of shading. There are line-of-cut artists that do it both ways. Some, it almost looks like a really detailed pen and ink drawing. Others, it's a very bold black and white statement. See, I'm carving away from myself. And you can turn the block too. So please don't forget that you can turn your block so that you're not carving sideways into your neighbor or towards yourself. That would be a terrible idea. Okay, so let's go around the corner here. And I'm going to go up. Okay. And I am making sure to leave this, do you see this line? I want this to be black. So I'm leaving that here. And if you make a little line like this, sometimes it kind of sticks on the end. You can just push it straight up. It's also a good time to use the 6 if it's right along an edge somewhere. So, for example, see, I can do this part here. And say I don't want to get too close here to the end. I want a little border. You can cut it. You could also pre-cut, like I know I want it to stop right there. Then when you go back along, it'll just pop up right on the edge that you want it to be. Okay, so we'll just start there. Okay, so neat patterns can be achieved with lots of little lines. You can cross hatch, and that ends up looking like this. So I printed my ladybug directly onto a wood block. So you do see some of the wood grain, but these lines are the ones that I've carved, and then this is where I have the hatching and cross hatching to make the center more interesting. You can also see I left this big kind of chunk around there, and it creates sort of a shadow in the flower. Cool. Okay, well, I hope that gets you all off to a good start. If you have any questions, you can ask me next week. Thanks. Bye.